Marina Vista, located in San Francisco's upscale residential area, is beloved by locals as a sophisticated restaurant offering spectacular views of the bay. As the morning sun glimmered on the water's surface, Elizabeth Walker was already in the kitchen creating today's special menu. The light streaming through the window illuminated her face, highlighting the fine lines etched there. Her face bore the marks of 10 years of hardship and success. "Liz, are you done adjusting the menu? We have a special reservation today," called James Martin, the restaurant manager. Liz smiled and turned to face him. "Yes, I'm almost finished. But today's reservation requires some special attention." Liz took a deep breath and continued, "My family is coming today. It's a party to celebrate my parents' 40th wedding anniversary." James looked surprised. "Your family? They still don't know you're the owner here, right?" Liz quietly shook her head. "They think I'm just working here as a waitress. I plan to keep it that way today," she answered while gazing out the window. "When I decided to pursue cooking, they strongly opposed it. Especially my mother and Vanessa, saying things like, 'Get a stable job,' and 'What will come of chasing such dreams?' She was the only a black sheep in the family. They expected her, after graduating from college, to either join a large corporation or marry into a good family. Still, I followed my own path. I used scholarships to study cooking in Paris, gained experience in various restaurants, and here I am 10 years later. And now you're the owner chef of one of San Francisco's most highly regarded restaurants," James added proudly. At 5:30 p.m., Liz held a staff meeting. She had taken off her chef's coat and changed into a regular waitress uniform. "Tonight we have special guests coming. My family," she said quietly. "They don't know I'm the owner here. Just for tonight, I'll be working as a regular server." At exactly 6 p.m., the Walker family arrived at the restaurant. Her mother Diane wore a high-end designer dress, while her father Frank wore an old-fashioned suit. Her sister Vanessa was dressed in the latest fashion, and her brother Michael wore a subdued business casual style. "What a lovely restaurant," Diane said, looking around. "I'm surprised Elizabeth works in such a place. I wonder how she got the job." "Probably through someone's connections," Vanessa said with a sniff. "That's about all she can manage." Liz watched them from the kitchen. She felt something tightening in her chest, but took a deep breath and suppressed it. "I'll handle this," Liz told James. He looked concerned but nodded. Liz approached the family table with the wine list and menus. With a professional smile, she said, "Welcome to Marina Vista. I'll be taking care of you this evening." The family looked up at her. A flash of surprise crossed Diane's face, but quickly changed to a smile full of superiority. "Well, Elizabeth. You're our server? What a coincidence," Diane's voice dripped with sarcasm. Liz maintained her professional smile. "Yes, please let me know if you have any special requests." "Oh my, what could you possibly do?" Vanessa said mockingly. "Do you even know how to choose wine?" Surprised glances were cast from surrounding tables at the rude behavior. Liz's staff could barely hide their anger, but she remained calm. "Of course. To complement today's chef's special menu, I recommend a 2018 Chateau Margaux," Liz answered fluently. The family continued to look down on her, increasing the staff's discomfort. But Liz kept responding calmly. "Shall I bring some champagne to start?" Liz suggested. The entire family was seated, seemingly impressed by the elegant atmosphere. The sparkling night view of San Francisco Bay spread out through the large windows, and soft jazz played in the background. "Yes, that's fine," Diane answered condescendingly. "Frank, it's your special anniversary, order the best champagne." Frank nodded slightly and said while looking at the menu, "Do you have Dom Perignon?" "Of course," Liz smiled. "An excellent choice. I'll bring it right away." As she left the table, Vanessa began to snicker. "My goodness, look at her outfit. She's a waitress at a high-end restaurant, but what's with that hairstyle and makeup?" Michael shrugged. "Well, that's just like her. Always wanting to do things differently from others." That's right, Diane sighed. She was always stubborn. She should have chosen a more proper profession after college. Frank closed the menu and said quietly, but Liz seems to be working hard on the path she's chosen. Just working hard, Diane shot back sharply. She hasn't produced results, has she? Working as a waitress in a restaurant like this. Look at Vanessa. She's a manager at a top company and has a lovely family. Vanessa smiled with satisfaction. I had a plan. Liz was just a dreamer. Liz returned with the champagne. She had heard the family's conversation but showed nothing on her face. The patience she had developed over 10 years of restaurant management was serving her well. Pardon the wait. Dom Perignon, 2013 vintage, she professionally displayed the bottle and removed the cork. As she poured the golden bubbly liquid into the glasses, she was laughing inside. This champagne was one she had personally selected. And its price was far higher than her family could imagine. Let's make a toast, Frank raised his glass. To our 40 years of marriage, and to the happy days ahead. The entire family clinked glasses, and Diane smiled with satisfaction. It's been a wonderful 40 years. Our children have also grown up well. She looked at Liz, paused briefly, then continued, most of them are successful, anyway. Vanessa smirked at those words and looked at Liz. Then suddenly, her expression changed as if she'd thought of an amusing idea. Hey, I just thought of something good, Vanessa said to Diane. Why don't we have her serve us? She's finally being a useful adult. Diane happily jumped on her daughter's mean-spirited suggestion. That's a great idea. Let's have her serve the family, shall we? Laughter spread between the two of them, and even Michael joined in with a small laugh, though he looked uncomfortable. Only Frank frowned, but said nothing. Liz stood silently. One of the staff approached the table with an angry expression, but she stopped them with a slight shake of her head. Of course, I'd be happy to help the family, Liz replied calmly. Today's course consists of 7 dishes, from the chef's special appetizer to dessert. Diane said, basking in her sense of superiority, then, I want you to serve us exclusively. We don't need other waiters. Understood, Liz answered briefly and headed to the kitchen. In the kitchen, the chefs were busy preparing dishes. Under Liz's direction, they were using the finest ingredients to prepare a special menu. This menu was something Liz had always proudly offered. James approached her. Are you okay? That attitude. Don't worry, Liz answered quietly. This is my battle. They still don't know who this restaurant belongs to. She placed the appetizer on a tray, took a deep breath, and returned to the dining room. When she returned to the table, the family had already used her absence to continue criticizing her. She always wanted to go her own way, Diane said, swirling her wine glass. Even in school, she always had strange ideas. The conversation stopped abruptly when Liz approached. She pretended not to have heard anything and elegantly arranged the dishes. Today's appetizer is a beet and goat cheese salad from a local organic farm, with truffle oil and balsamic dressing. My! What a beautiful presentation, Diane said, looking impressed. This restaurant is better than I thought. Vanessa poked at the food with her fork. But isn't this a bit avant-garde? I prefer more traditional cuisine. Yes, I agree, Diane nodded. Elizabeth, can you ask the chef to prepare something more ordinary? Liz answered without breaking her smile, I'm sorry, but today's menu has been specially selected by the chef. It would be difficult to change. What are you saying? Vanessa raised her voice. You won't listen to customer requests? For someone in your position to refuse. Once again, uncomfortable glances were directed from surrounding tables. Liz maintained her professional attitude and replied, I would like to accommodate your requests as much as possible, but given the kitchen's preparations. Fine, Diane waved her hand. I suppose that's the best someone at your level can do. Just bring more wine for now. Liz nodded quietly and headed to the wine cellar. She selected a top-quality red wine and returned. This is Chateau Lafite Rothschild, 2010 vintage, she showed the bottle. A wine that pairs perfectly with the main dish. Frank said with a surprised expression, "This wine is quite expensive." "Is that all right?" "It's included in the party plan," Liz answered briefly. Of course, no such plan existed. She had chosen this wine based on her own judgment. As the meal progressed, the family's attitude became increasingly arrogant. Especially Vanessa and Diane, who made one unreasonable demand after another. "The water is lukewarm. There's not enough sauce. The lighting is too bright." Liz responded calmly to all demands. In her mind, a plan was already in motion. She remembered all of her family's words and actions, accumulating them as evidence for the truth that would eventually be revealed. "Would you like dessert?" Liz asked after the main course. "Of course," Diane said. "And coffee too." "Do you know how to make coffee?" Vanessa laughed. "Mom, that's asking too much. She probably doesn't know how to use an espresso machine." Liz quietly picked up the tray. "Certainly. I'll prepare dessert and coffee." As she headed to the kitchen, James placed a hand on her shoulder. "That's enough. You should tell them the truth." Liz looked at James and showed a genuine smile for the first time. "Be patient a little longer. Dessert time will be the moment of truth." While preparing dessert, she reflected on the past 10 years. Her family's contempt, her decision, and the journey to today. Tonight, everything would be revealed. She placed perfectly arranged desserts and coffee on the tray and headed to the dining room. "Wonderful dessert," Diane said, breaking the crisp surface of the crème brûlée with her spoon. "This restaurant's food is surprisingly good." Vanessa took a sip of coffee and showed a surprised expression. She turned to Liz, who was silently serving from behind. "Did you really make this?" she asked in a tone of disbelief. "The extraction is perfect." Liz smiled. "Thank you. Coffee is one of my specialties." Vanessa snorted. "But that alone won't pay the bills, will it? How much do waitresses make anyway?" Michael shifted uncomfortably. "Vanessa, that kind of question. What's the problem?" Vanessa waved her hand. "We're family. Elizabeth doesn't keep secrets from us, right?" There was a malicious tone in her voice. Liz answered quietly, "My income is sufficient. There's no need to worry." "But are you thinking about the future?" Diane interjected. "You're already 35. You can't keep doing this job forever." Liz took the wine bottle and refilled the glasses. "Please don't worry about my future. I have plans." "Really?" Vanessa said with a skeptical expression. "What kind of plans? Don't tell me you're planning to buy this restaurant?" She laughed loudly at her own joke. At that moment, Vanessa waved her hand dramatically, deliberately spilling wine toward Liz. The deep red liquid spread across Liz's pristine white waitress uniform. "Oh, I'm sorry," Vanessa offered a fake apology with a malicious smile. "It was an accident. But getting your uniform dirty is part of a waitress's job, isn't it?" Small laughter rose from around the table. Even Michael was chuckling. Only Frank frowned and offered a napkin. "Are you all right?" Liz took a deep breath. Her expression remained calm, but there was a determined light in her eyes. "I'm fine. I'll go change clothes," she said quietly. "I'll be right back." "No need to hurry," Diane waved her hand. "You can have another waiter take over." Liz gave James a signal. "I'll need a moment." As she headed to the kitchen, the family began evaluating her again. "Always the same," Diane sighed. "She always runs away halfway. She lacks strength." "That's why she can only do this kind of job," Vanessa agreed. "She can't handle pressure like I can." Michael showed a somewhat thoughtful expression. "But she's following the path she chose. Shouldn't we respect that?" "What are you saying?" Vanessa looked sharply at her brother. "Elizabeth is just a waitress. She's different from us." Frank put down his coffee cup. She's working hard. That alone. That's not enough, Frank, Diane cut off her husband's words. Success requires planning and ambition. She lacks both. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion at the restaurant entrance. An elegantly dressed older woman had come in and was receiving respectful greetings from the staff. That's Margaret Clayton, Diane said in a low voice. An influential person in this city. Her charitable activities are often covered in the news. Margaret gracefully crossed the dining room, exchanging greetings with other guests. Her presence was overwhelming, and the Walker family instinctively straightened their backs. At that moment, the kitchen door opened, and a figure appeared. It was a woman wearing a white chef's coat. It was Liz. She entered the dining room with confident steps, stopping at various tables to exchange brief conversations with the guests. The guests showed her respect, nodding and smiling at her words. At the Walker family's table, confusion was spreading. Is that Elizabeth? Diane said with an expression of disbelief. Why is she wearing a chef's uniform? Vanessa frowned. What's going on? Their questions deepened when Margaret Clayton approached Liz and warmly embraced her. Elizabeth. Margaret's voice resonated throughout the dining room. Your restaurant is always wonderful. The food at last week's charity gala was a huge success. Thank you, Margaret, Liz smiled gently. I really appreciate your support. Margaret placed her hand on Liz's shoulder. As I always say, you have real talent. In the 10 years since you opened this restaurant, you've had a significant impact on San Francisco's food culture. After a brief conversation with Margaret, Liz slowly approached the family's table. Her expression was calm, but there was a determined light in her eyes. Sorry to keep you waiting, Liz said quietly. Elizabeth, Diane said with a trembling voice. What is this? Why are you wearing a chef's uniform? And how were you talking to Margaret Clayton like that? Vanessa showed obvious anxiety. Liz looked at her family. And then, she began to speak the truth she had suppressed for 10 years. I want to let you all know, her voice was calm but powerful. I am the owner and chef here. For 10 years, I have been building my business. A wave of shock spread around the table. The color drained from Diane's face, and Vanessa was left speechless with her mouth open. Michael sank deep into his chair in astonishment, while only Frank was slowly nodding. That can't be, Diane finally regained her voice. Weren't you just a waitress? No, Mother, Liz shook her head. After studying cooking in Paris and training in various restaurants, I returned to open my own restaurant. Marina Vista is my restaurant. But why did you hide it? Michael asked with a confused expression. Liz took a deep breath. Because you didn't understand my choices. When I chose the path of cooking, especially Mom and Vanessa ridiculed my dreams. So I decided to silently follow my own path. She looked around. The entire restaurant had gone quiet, and all eyes were on her. I prepared a special menu today. To celebrate my parents' anniversary, Liz continued gently. And to show what I've accomplished over the past 10 years. The family was frozen in shock and disbelief. Especially Diane and Vanessa's faces showed the color of humiliation. They had just been treating the restaurant owner as just a waitress and insulting her. Let's make a toast, Liz raised her wine glass. To family reunion and the moment of truth. Applause erupted from the surrounding tables, and Margaret Clayton looked at Liz with a proud expression. At the family table, no one could respond to her toast. They were still desperately trying to understand what was happening before their eyes. The silence lasted for several seconds. Diane was the first to regain her words. What kind of joke is this? Her voice was half doubtful. You, the restaurant owner? That can't be. Liz smiled calmly. This is no joke. This restaurant, Marina Vista, is my property. For 10 years since its founding, I have worked here as the owner chef. Vanessa stood up, her face turning red. Lies. Show us proof. James approached the table and politely offered a folder. Here are the official documents. Restaurant ownership, awards, and magazine feature articles. Frank quietly opened the folder and looked through the contents. His expression could be seen changing from surprise to pride. This is true, he said in a small voice. Liz has won the Bay Area Dining Award for Best Chef 3 years in a row. She's even been on the cover of a Food and Wine magazine. Michael stared at Liz with an expression of disbelief. Sis, why didn't you tell us? Why do you think? Liz's voice was gentle, but her words carried 10 years of suppressed emotions. When I said I wanted to go to culinary school, what did you all say? Do you remember? Diane tried to speak, but Liz continued. Mom said, such an unstable job won't guarantee your future. Vanessa laughed and called it Elizabeth's typical unrealistic dream. And you all didn't respect my choice. She took a deep breath and steadied her voice. So I decided to walk my own path silently. I studied in Paris with scholarships, trained in New York and San Francisco, and then opened my own restaurant. Frank pointed to a newspaper article in the folder. It says here that Liz's restaurant earned a Michelin star in its first year of opening. A star? Diane looked at her husband with a surprised expression. A Michelin star? Yes, Mother, Liz answered. Marina Vista currently holds 2 stars. We're aiming for 3 stars next year. Margaret Clayton approached the table again. Elizabeth's restaurant is wonderful, she said to the Walker family. Her cooking philosophy and commitment to local ingredients have revolutionized San Francisco's food culture. Margaret placed her hand on Liz's shoulder. That's not all. Elizabeth has also started a mentor program for young chefs. She teaches cooking skills to underprivileged youth, giving them a future. Liz bowed her head humbly. That's not just my effort. It's thanks to the cooperation of all staff. An elderly gentleman from another table stood up and called out, Elizabeth, thank you so much for donating food to the hospital charity last month. Many patients were delighted. Another female guest added, I'll never forget how you catered my daughter's wedding reception. Thanks to you, a special day became even more wonderful. As more and more voices of gratitude and praise for Liz rose, silence continued at the Walker family's table. Diane and Vanessa's faces visibly paled. They realized their behavior had been witnessed by many people and felt deep humiliation. We didn't know, Diane said in a small voice. You didn't try to know, Liz answered quietly. When I went to Paris, no one contacted me. When my first restaurant succeeded in New York, no one congratulated me. I wanted to share my success with my family, but you always despised my choices. Vanessa returned to her seat and held her wine glass with trembling hands. But, why did you wait until today? Why reveal it this way? Liz looked at her. Today, when you treated me as just a waitress and ridiculed my existence, I finally understood. You weren't ready to see my success. She looked around the table. But I still love my family. That's why I prepared a special menu tonight. To sincerely celebrate my parents' wedding anniversary. Frank took his daughter's hand. Liz, I'm truly sorry. I always believed in my heart that you would accomplish something wonderful. But I went along with my wife. I understand, Dad, Liz said gently. Michael bowed his head in shame. I want to apologize too. I sided with Vanessa and Mom and didn't respect your dreams. Now, seeing this success, I'm really proud. Diane was still agitated. But why did you pretend to be a waitress? Why didn't you tell the family the truth? Because I didn't think you were ready to accept the truth, Liz answered frankly. And today, seeing your attitudes, I'm convinced that judgment wasn't wrong. The guests present were quietly listening to this family drama. Many directed sympathetic looks toward Liz, impressed by her strength and patience. James returned to the table. The special version of dessert is ready. Liz nodded. Thank you, James. She turned back to her family. I've prepared a special dessert for my parents' anniversary. Please enjoy it. The staff brought in elegant dessert plates. They were beautiful like works of art, with the number 40 placed on top, decorated with small gold leaf. Frank was moved to tears. Liz, this is wonderful. Diane opened her mouth but couldn't say anything. Tears were also shining in her eyes. They were tears of embarrassment, regret, and complex emotions. Margaret Clayton approached the table again and raised her wine glass. Let's toast to Mr. and Mrs. Walker's 40th anniversary and to the success of their wonderful daughter Elizabeth. Applause erupted from throughout the restaurant. Liz pressed the sleeve of her chef's coat to her eyes. The truth she had hidden for 10 years had finally come to light. Diane and Vanessa looked at Liz with complex expressions. Within them, a struggle was occurring between the sense of superiority they had held for years and the reality now before them. Liz quietly raised her glass. To family reunion. Frank and Michael immediately raised their glasses, but Diane and Vanessa hesitated a bit before slowly raising theirs. 3 months had passed. Liz was making final checks on table preparations. Tonight was a special night. It was the first gathering since she had sent invitations to her family. Ready? James came in with wine in hand. Yes, Liz nodded, looking a bit nervous. But I wonder if everyone will come. They will, James said confidently. Your father and Michael have already arrived. They're waiting in the lobby. Liz smiled. Since that night, her father Frank and her brother Michael had actively tried to repair their relationship with her. Frank called every week, asking about Liz's work and life. He sincerely conveyed how proud he was of his daughter's success, and Michael similarly showed his apologetic feelings. However, her mother Diane and sister Vanessa had shown different reactions. They were cold to Liz's communications, not even replying for the first few weeks. Pride was probably getting in the way. Mom and Vanessa? Liz asked James. James looked toward the door. Not yet. But they accepted the invitation, right? Yes. Liz gazed out the window. But I don't know if they'll really come. According to what she heard from Margaret Clayton, Diane and Vanessa were feeling uncomfortable in social circles. Rumors had quickly spread that Liz was actually a renowned San Francisco chef involved in many charitable activities. And similarly, the attitude of her mother and sister, who had long undervalued her, had become widely known. Furthermore, there was information that Vanessa's husband's company was in financial trouble, and Diane and Frank's retirement funds had significantly decreased due to a stock market crash. However, Liz had no intention of mentioning these in front of her family. I didn't invite them for revenge, Liz told James. I just want to start a new relationship as a family. The door opened, and Frank and Michael entered. The two approached Liz with nervous expressions and exchanged warm embraces. It's a wonderful restaurant, daughter, Frank said, looking around with emotion. I'm looking forward to properly tasting your cooking today. Thank you, Dad, Liz smiled. Michael handed Liz a small box. This is as an apology and a token of a new beginning for my sister. When Liz opened the box, there was a small gold chef's hat pendant. This is the pendant you wanted along with a cookbook when you graduated high school, Michael said bashfully. We didn't buy it then. Now I realize we should have supported your dream back then. Tears welled up in Liz's eyes. At that moment, the door opened again, and Diane and Vanessa appeared. They weren't as glamorous as before, but they were neatly dressed and had tense expressions. Silence filled the room. Diane was the first to step forward. Elizabeth, thank you for inviting us. Liz nodded quietly. We? Diane stumbled over her words. We were wrong. We didn't try to understand you. And we came to apologize, Vanessa continued. There was a humility in her eyes that had never been seen before. Our pride and vanity prevented us from recognizing my sister's wonderful talent. Liz took a deep breath and said, let's forget the past today and make this a new beginning. We are family. From now on, let's respect each other. She signaled to the staff. Now, let's sit down. I've prepared a special menu for tonight. As the family took their seats, Liz said finally, no matter how far apart we are, no matter how different we are, we will always be family. I want to cherish that bond. Candlelight flickered on the table, and outside the window, the sunset was sinking to the horizon, as if heralding the beginning of a new day and a new family relationship.